I guess I should say that my name is Vicki Simonson. I know a lot of you. You see a lot of familiar faces. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Agent here in Pratt County. With us today, we also have Justin Goodnow in the back. He is recording this session for us so we can put it online. He is the Ag Agent for Barber County. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So since it's been a few years since we went through this, we're going to start with the basics and just talk about the different programs that you can elect to be in. So on this side, we've got the price loss coverage and then the agricultural risk coverage at the county level. And those two are programs that you enroll in on a commodity basis. So you can have a single farm that you enroll PLC for wheat, and you can do ARC County for your corn if you would like. And those are on 85% of your base. The other option is the agricultural risk coverage at the individual level. Now that is for the whole farm. And if you're enrolling, that would mean that your corn, wheat, whatever base acres you have in whichever commodities would all be on that individual level in the ARC. And that is only on 65% of the total base. But the main two programs are the PLC and the ARC at the county level. If you enroll in price loss coverage, the PLC option, you can also apply and get supplemental coverage option, and that is something that we'll touch briefly on today, but if you would like more information, talk to your crop insurance agent. They can give you a lot more information and give you some estimates of what those premiums would be. Can everybody hear me all right before I continue on? All right, Brandon's giving me a thumbs up. So the ARC CO is a low revenue program. It triggers when the revenue is below 86% of the county benchmark, and that is set by the last 5 years with one lag year. So that means that you're basing that upon, for this time around, it would be on 18, 17, 16, 15, and 14. And that is for the national marketing year average. And the prices, the marketing year average prices nationally, and then the county level yields. And so these payments are determined on a county by county basis, and they are subject to a 10% payment cap. So if you look at the handout that walks you through the math on the ARC and the PLC payments, it walks through what that benchmark revenue is, and that 10% cap is 10% of that benchmark revenue. There's then the PLC, which is the low price program. This triggers when the national marketing year average price falls below a reference price for a crop. And so it isn't determined by yield. The payments are determined by the national price and paid on farm base acres and program yields. And so it's subject to a much higher cap, and like I mentioned before, you can get the SCO supplemental coverage option with that. So there is no yield protection with the PLC, but the offset is that it has a higher cap. And so if we look at the last go around, we can see that on a national basis, we had corn and soybeans that were heavily enrolled in ARC CO. Grain sorghum, it was pretty even, and then wheat, it was about a third and 2/3 enrolled in ARC. Whereas when we look at Kansas, we see again, corn and soybeans were primarily enrolled in ARC County, and grain sorghum was split, but we had a little bit higher enrollment in the ARC County versus PLC for wheat based on situations at the time. So we were looking at having pretty good prices but not good yields. So when we look at what the total payments were, we see that initially that ARC choice was a good choice. It had higher payments than PLC, but 3 years in is when things kind of started to shift, and the PLC and ARC had more of an equal payment. And so looking at it, the first 2 years ARC was a good decision, and that's the benefit for this year. This time around, we are going to be enrolling for 2 years, and then after that, you'll be enrolling every single year. So you won't be making a 5-year commitment, you'll be making 2-year commitment and then be able to change that based on the risk that you see for your operation. And so what we did last time around, based on information from surveys that we did, like the survey that I would love for you all to fill out at the end of this meeting, as well as actual Farm Bill data, we saw that farmers with more experience picked PLC. That more experience with low price scenarios caused those farmers with more experience to want to protect against that risk, whereas newer farmers who just came off a run of very good incomes were more wanting to get protection for low yields and that low revenue versus just the low price. Farmers with higher crop insurance coverage levels preferred ARC because they didn't see the advantage to the SCO option under PLC, and high levels of uncertainty pushed people towards that PLC option. It was a simpler program and it was more attractive to people who just weren't sure what the programs were and what to pick. The current information on payouts of ARC in 2014 in certain counties pushed people towards ARC as well at that point. It was a bird in the hand situation versus looking at the entire 5-year period. And so that's what happened last time around. And so what do we expect this time around? We expect a tendency to look backwards and try to fix our perceived mistakes, but we don't want to do that. We want to look at the information right now, and we do have pretty good information on 2019 because it's already been wrapped up, and we want to look towards the future and use the best information that we have to make the best choice for each operation. And risk management versus the highest payout. We want to look at, is your farm more susceptible to a catastrophic price scenario or a shallow loss? Making your decisions based on what you see as the biggest risk to your operation. And the MF payments will be supplementing ARC PLC payments, and they may end up being higher for some people, but they're not something that we should count on and rely upon in the future. We are not sure if they will be applied again in 2020. And so the decisions that need to be made are choosing a program for each farm, and then the big thing with that is you guys need to make sure to get in and make your enrollments, because if you do not enroll, you will default to the program you had last time around, and you will forfeit any payment on the 2019 crop. And so the first payment of the new Farm Bill will be made in October 2020, and this will be on the harvested crops in 2019. Because it takes a full year to get that marketing average price for each commodity. Therefore, that's why there's big lag between when the crop is harvested and when you actually get that payment. And so the PLC versus ARC producer election, this allows producers to select annually what program is projected to pay the most or offer the best risk management for their farms. So this is really nice. Like I said, you're not committing for 5 years. You're making a 2-year commitment this time around, and then you're going to be able to change it annually. And so that is one of the big changes. And then beginning in 2021 crop year, producers will be allowed to change their program elections annually. So Lori is going to talk about the timeline a little bit with you guys.
My small little bit in all this, but this is what we're really interested in. We've been waiting for you guys to come in, and I know you've been waiting for this meeting, get a little more information, waiting on that informational tool. But for the 2019 election and the enrollment, you have to be in the office. You have to have all of your signatures in by March 15th. So we're running way behind. Generally, we're 70 to 75% done with all you guys. You've made your stuff. And the officers are like 7 to 10% right now. So as soon as we get done with this meeting, we'd love for you guys to give the offices a call, whether you're in Barber or Pratt. Get those appointments scheduled. You can go ahead and do it, and you can change your mind on your elections and your enrollments up to that deadline. And you can see that the 2020 enrollment, actually, you have until June 30th. We're going to try our best to do both of the years at the same time. If you have power of attorney for everybody on your farm, that makes it real simple. We only require signatures that are actually getting a share of the crop. So if you are cash leasing, getting a 0 share, we're not requiring that any longer. Something else, we mailed some letters out. I can't even tell you when that was. October, maybe that we did that? Last of October, that we mailed some letters out to you guys with a form, because you can update your yields again this go round. Those you have until September 30th. So once again, I'm going to tell you, you need to come in, get your elections and enrollments done. If you don't have your yields ready, we can add those later on, because we've got clear till September 30th to get those in. I guess, does anybody have any questions about that? Pretty simple. We just need you guys to get in there. Just keeping in mind that if you don't make that election for 19, you're going to have whatever you chose for 18, and then you will not get any payment for 19. You'll have to wait for 20. Okay?
Amen.
Do you just enroll in the control county, or do you have to?
Whatever, I guess you need me. The question was, if you roll in your control county, whatever county that your farm is administered out of. Now, you can actually go to another county and they can pull up anything across the state or anything across the United States. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but you can do it. Okay?
All right, and one thing that has also changed this time around in PLC is this effective reference price instead of just a statutory reference price. Essentially breaking that down, what it means is there is more of a min-max. So the reference price is the min, and then the highest effective reference price possible is the max. From what I've heard from the economists, they don't expect that to be going a lot higher. They would say just stick with this. The effect, that reference price is probably what it is going to be. They don't see it going higher to that highest effective reference price, maybe up a little bit, but probably not a whole lot. So that's very similar still to the 2014 Farm Bill. And then marketing year for crops. So the marketing year is a 12-month period beginning in the calendar year that the crop is normally harvested. So Lori wanted to include this just so you guys had this to reference in the handouts. So wheat, barley, and oats, that is from June 1st through May 31st. Canola, it's July 1st through June 30th. Seed cotton, it's August 1st through July 31st. And then for corn, grain, sorghum, soybeans, and sunflowers, it's September 1st through August 31st. And so what changed in PLC? The second thing that changed is the payment yield updates will be again offered in 2020. And the biggest thing here is that everyone should take advantage of updating. You should talk to them, see what the update would be, and if that works for you. It's intended to benefit you guys because you guys especially who sustained multiple years of losses during the 2008 to 2012 crop years. You know, 2012 wasn't a great year. And so to calculate that updated program yield from 2014 on, hopefully would allow you to increase your yields for those base acres. And so it will use the farm's yields from 2013 to 2017, excluding any years that the crops were not planted, and the low yield years will be replaced by 75% of the county average yield from 2013 to 2017. And so Lori put that in here. These are the substitute yields for Barber County. They're in your handout if you would like to reference them in the future. And then these are the yields for Pratt County. I'm not going to talk too much about them. It's just there for you guys to be able to reference. Then,
when we fill out that 859C, do we need to plug in the minimum yield, or if we have one that's lower, will you guys take care of it in the office for us?
We will take care of that.
Okay.
You fill in what your actual is, and
Okay.
actually the software automatically fills in that.
Thank you.
yeah.
Sorry, I probably would mention that if you didn't have a yield in that year, just not be included.
Right. If you did not plant that crop, just skip over that year. Okay. Don't enter a 0, because 0 means that you planted it and you didn't get any production off it, so that's going to pull it down. So if you didn't plant, say you skipped a year of grain sorghum or something, just skip over that year, don't fill it in.
It's like on corn, if you have dry land irrigated, you have to average those, right?
Yes. You average your irrigated and non-irrigated together.
What about double crop?
Good question. On the double crop, we don't generally pull in your double crop on that. The only time that Pratt nor Barber County are considered double crop counties, so exclude your double crop. We call them subsequent acres. Okay. Any other questions on yields?
So basically that average farm yield over those years after the low yield replacement is then multiplied by 90% and then by a detrending factor. Don't get caught up in that formula. Like Lori mentioned, the FSA will run those. You just bring in your actual yields and they will put it into the program. Again, just for a reference, if you are interested, here is the detrending factor / the national yield factor that will be multiplied by those averages and then that 90% to get your updated yield. So now moving on to changes in Ark County, if there are no more PLC questions right now. One of the things that has changed in Ark County is there's an increase in the transitional yield plug from 80% to 80% from 70% for the Olympic average yield calculation in Ark. And so what this means is your low years in the county yield history will be replaced by a higher number, which will bring the average up in some cases. So it's not going to hurt. It might help or just be the same as it was before. But that is one of the things that will be changing. And then the trend yield adjustment, similar to the crop insurance and the SCO's trend adjustment, will also be applied to the Ark, which will increase the guarantee in many cases. So another change is the Ark payments will be based on the county where the base acres are located rather than the administrative county. So even if you are administrating in Barber County, but the acres are in Pratt, it'll be based off the Pratt acres, not Barber County. And another thing that's changing is a prioritization of risk management agency data in the calculation of county yields. And that's the crop insurance data so that we have better information and it can be a little bit more accurate. So it guarantees those actual yields and is a little bit more accurate than the NAS.
So when you're calculating the yields and you have a farm that's across 2 different counties,
Yeah.
do you separate those counties when you're doing yields, or do you put them all together as one farm number? Is there a change there?
So the question is, if you have a farm that's in 2 different counties and you're updating those yields, are the yields from both counties or just one county?
How do we treat that?
It's one yield. So if you have a farm that has both Pratt and Barber County land in it, it's still just one yield. We don't divide them out. I'm sorry.
So another change is there will be a separate irrigated and non-irrigated yield for Ark guarantee in a lot more counties. And this is because they've changed the requirements for that. Last time around, it was 25% of the acres had to be in one or the other. So you had to have at least 25% irrigated to have irrigated and dry land. This time around, it's changed to having 3 out of 5 years of risk management agency data for each practice from 2013 to 2017, or at least 10% of the crop in the county and at least 5,000 acres each year from 2013 to 2017. And so that has created a lot more counties that have that separation of both irrigated and non-irrigated in the Ark County. And then the 5-year guarantee, like I mentioned earlier, will have a lag year. So the guarantee for 2019 will include 2013 to 2017 will be the years. And then 2020 guarantee will include 2014 to 2018. So when we come next year to make the decision for 2021, it will be based on the data from 2015 to 2019 so that the data will be more readily available and we won't be waiting on it like we were this time around. So that is the hope. And just for you guys to reference again, separated irrigated and non-irrigated yields are listed here. So Barber County, they have corn, soybeans, and wheat. Pratt County has corn, grain sorghum, cotton, soybeans, and wheat all separated into irrigated and non-irrigated. And then Lori's going to talk a little bit about budget sequestration applied to payments, just to mention it for you guys.
Okay. We've had the sequestration for the last several years. We know that 2019 is going to be 6.2 and 20 is going to be 5.9. And obviously 21, 22, and 23, they have not announced those yet.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the trade-offs between PLC and ARC and some projections. So this is a graph that we had one of our economists put together that just kind of talks about the stores. So the stocks to use graph is along the bottom, and then the price per bushel is along the top. So we can see when we got to 2017, 18, 19, and 20, we have pretty high stores of wheat versus what's being used, and subsequently seen a little bit lower price from that. So that's kind of what's happened over the last 10 years in wheat. And these are some of the price projections that we have currently for wheat coming up. We've got the K-State monthly estimate, which is updated, and then a couple of other sources of estimates for you guys, so you can not only look at us, but try to look at a few different options. So now to really break things down. Stay with me, guys. So here we've got our tool here is the ARC payments versus PLC payments. And this is not the actual tool. I'm sorry, guys, we're still waiting. But this is a useful grid chart that we can look at. So when we break this down, we see the PLC payment is in this column versus our market year average price. So it takes a price of $5.50 or lower to start seeing a PLC payment. If we want to compare that to ARC, we see that our average county yield is about 45 bushels. And so we go over to our yield index over here, and we looked down to see where this payment starts. At a yield of 45 bushels, we would have to have below $4.87. We'd have to have a price below that to start kicking in those ARC payments. So the PLC payments will exceed the ARC payments until the price drops below $4.87. And then the ARC County maximum payment, which is that 10% of that benchmark revenue, is $25.29. So that is the cap of what your ARC County payment could be. Are we good? Do we kind of see what's going on? So basically, if the county yield is lower than average, the ARC County will pay at much higher prices. But if the county yield is higher, like this situation over here, it's not going to pay. So like I was talking about before, the ARC is that revenue protection. So you're looking at your yield and the price versus the PLC is just looking at the price. So that's why that PLC kicks in at a higher price, but the ARC, if you have that normal yield, it's going to take longer to kick in, and it will be at a lower price. So this is for Pratt County for wheat that's not irrigated. And then if we switch to irrigated, non-irrigated in Barber County, we see that the PLC payments, again, are at $5.50, but it kicks in for ARC at that average yield of 35 bushels at $4.97. So it's until that point that PLC is going to have a higher payment. And your maximum will be that $19.91 for ARC. So this is a lot of similar things. We're just going to go through a couple of the commodities. So here's corn. Again, we're looking at that stocks. You see that we've got around 15, 14, 13% stocks to use ratio there, and then the price prediction of 385, which is similar to the market year average that we are estimating for this. And when we look at our graph here, we see that the PLC payments will be made if it drops below $3.70. But if you have your average yield of 68 bushels, then it's not going to be until $3.21 that you're going to have that price kick in. But again, if you have a lower yield, it would kick in faster. So that's the trade-off between those. The ARC County maximum payment will be $25.11 for the Pratt corn non-irrigated. Walking through the irrigated, we see the bushels increase. The price is pretty similar though, $3.70 versus $3.21. So this is a lot of the same information, but I just wanted to have this all in there for you guys to reference. And if you would like, you can feel free to contact me and stop in my office and we can go through these things again. Looking at Barber County's corn, they have a non-irrigated bushels of 72 is the average. So we have the market year average price at 370 again, and 321 ends up being what that revenue, what that price would be for the ARC payments to start kicking in. And the ARC County maximum payment would be $26.46. And again, the irrigated is pretty similar to what Pratt was at 370 and 321. Now looking at sorghum stocks, we see that the feeding and the stocks to use were kind of similar to the corn. We've got around 15 to 18 in there for the stocks to use, and the price is around $3.40. And those predictions are in there for you guys. So looking at this, we see that the PLC payments will be made if the price is $3.95. And looking at our average of 64, it will be $3.43 if you have that average. That would be the price you would have to hit for those ARC payments to kick in. But again, if you had a lower yield, like 42, you could hit that cap pretty quickly, even at a higher payment, even at a higher market year average price. And then irrigated to follow. I know this is very repetitive, having two counties in irrigated and non-irrigated, but I did want to include all of these graphs for you guys so you can look at them and kind of make your decisions based on that. So does anybody have any specific questions, or we're kind of just keep rolling through? Brandon?
That tool is available online.
Yes, this is available online. You can look at it. It is on the agmanager.info website, and it is just an Excel spreadsheet that you plug in. So you plug in your state, county, your crop, and then you either say all, or if it has a designation, you select non-irrigated or irrigated. So that is something that you guys can do on your own. We'll talk about the tools that are available right now in just a little bit. But if there's any more questions on these, otherwise we'll just kind of roll through them and get to the other stuff. Weston?
Your average price and even spread average over the 12 months, or is it weighted more on one end versus the back end?
So it's kind of spread out throughout the whole year, and it's that national. So it's not based on what's just here. The market year average is really based on what's going on nationally. So that's why it may look a little bit different from the prices that you're seeing here at the county level, because it's looking at the broader market. But it is based upon the whole year, and that's why they wait until the end of that crop year to actually calculate that. because yes, they do fluctuate across the year, so it's accounting for that. Any other questions on this type of figure? All right, so again, soybeans, we're looking at this. And then looking at the soybeans, we've got non-irrigated. And this is kind of where soybeans are at. The non-irrigated $8.40 is the price for the PLC to start kicking in payments. And for the average of 28 bushels, it's also $8.40. So that's a little bit trickier to look at and determine. They're a little bit closer, those two options. The same for the irrigated. And then Barber County, it's slightly different, but it's still pretty similar. So now to the Farm Bill decision tools. So agmanager.info has these handouts that I have given you today, as well as a lot more information. And those Excel sheets that you can work through. We're still waiting on Oklahoma to finish that pesky results page on the tool that we were supposed to be doing with them. But in the meantime, Illinois and Texas A&M both have farm tools online that you can use. The Illinois tool is pretty simple. It does not have grain sorghum in it, which is unfortunate, but basically the things that you need to plug in are just like the inputs for here. You just need to tell it your state, your county, your farm ID from your 156 form from the FSA office, and then the commodity and your PLC yields. That's all that you need to plug into there. The Texas A&M tool is a little bit more in depth. You have to create an account and you do it online, but it does save the information that you input into it, so that is a benefit of that tool. So those are two different things, and if you would like to go through how to use those with me in the office, we can do that later. But the Illinois tool walks you through what all the calculations are, just like the handout that I gave you, and it tells you what those marketing year average prices that it's basing it on, as well as the county averages for the yields. So those are the two tools that I'm recommending right now. I will let you all know when we get that K-State tool done, but at this point, we are still waiting, unfortunately. Yeah?
Do you know what the holdup is?
So the person at Oklahoma who was supposed to be developing the tool, from what I've heard, had a much busier semester last semester teaching 2 graduate level classes. They didn't get the data until the beginning of October, which certainly didn't help anything. And they've just been having some issues. And I think it might be associated with changing the data from the NASS data to the risk management agency data as well, caused some hiccups. So that's what the main holdups have been on that. Because K-State, we put out the educational tool, like the educational resources, the trainings and stuff, and Oklahoma was the one that was supposed to develop the tool. It's been going back and forth, and I've seen beta versions of it, but the results page just isn't reliable enough.
Is this is the tool, I read somewhere, I thought it was this tool that they were going to be able to plug in farm numbers, and it's going to take off.
I don't know about that. I don't think that it does all that. It does take off with some of the information, but not like all of your yields and everything. It doesn't have access to like that database. You would have to input that information. Okay. But it does account for all that information. It's a lot more thorough, which is another reason. The Illinois tool it just goes off of the averages. There's not as much that you input into it. The K-State tool with Oklahoma, there was a lot more things that you inputted into it to really control based on what you thought the market was going to do. You could input your high and low and look at a lot of different things. So that's kind of what's caused it to be a little bit more of a headache as well.
Sure.
So, any more questions about the tools? All right. So, ARC-IC, like I said, we're going to touch briefly on this. The one thing that I've heard is that if all your farm acres were preventative plant for 2019, this is a program to look at it can pay off because you will have a zero yield, which will equal the maximum payment in 2019, because it's not based on the county averages, it is based on your actual farm's yield. But that means that you have a little bit more paperwork to do because you have to submit all of your yield information. And so what does it do for 2020? The lag year will not damage your history, plus the Olympic average drops the high and low, so it's not going to change any of that, but you will have, like I said, will have to submit a lot of historical paperwork to prove that this is what your farm's averages were, and then what your average was this year, which if you were fully preventative plant would be 0. So owners and operators with interests in this, again, you would be enrolling your farm, all of your commodities, and that would be something to talk to Lori about specifically. She can let you know if it's a good option or not. The other thing, again, to touch on briefly, would be the supplemental coverage option. It's only available under PLC. You cannot purchase it under ARC, and you have to have an endorsement to your own farm policy, that underlying policy, and it brings the coverage up to 86% of the expected yield/revenue. And so the money coverage based on the farm, it's based on the farm APH, but the loss trigger/measure is based on the county outcome. It's still not based on your individual farm's outcome, and you must sign up prior to planting. And so the SCO is part of the larger crop insurance option, and that's something, again, you can talk to Peachy Insurance or your crop insurance agent, and they can walk you through what exactly that would cost you and the benefits would be.
Just one comment on that. You want to make sure you don't sign up for it if you have ARC, because they keep 60% of your payment and you're not paying it.
So what was that again?
You want to make sure not to sign up for SCO if you choose ARC on the program, because you'll be disqualified, but they'll keep your premium payment.
Okay, so if you sign up and you're enrolled in ARC, they keep your premium and you lose, but you'll be disqualified. So definitely make sure you don't sign up for it unless you have PLC. So conclusions, we're getting towards the end, guys, hang in there. For the 2018 Farm Bill, it's a 2-year decision, not a 5-year decision, which means what do you expect the prices to be over the next 2 years? Are the prices lower than the PLC reference prices? Those will favor the PLC program. And what do you expect the yields to be over the next 2 years? With your ARC County program, it may be preferred if the prices are above reference prices because the lower yields can trigger payments. But again, that's based on the whole county, not just what you think your field's going to do. So you got to be thinking about the whole county. And then the SCO is a consideration. Look at it, but look at the options fully with your insurance agent so that you are in the know of what exactly it means. And the implications are, be careful of making a decision based solely on the result of the last 5 years and feeling like you did not get it right. Make sure to look at what you see coming, what you think is going to happen, and whether a price loss or a yield revenue loss is going to be the most risky situation for your operation, and make your decision that way. And with that, I would like to say thank you all for being here and sticking with me through this.